It's your tour guide around the SWAC Wells.
How long the tour bus, so let's go. Wednesday and Sunday out when you can take the tour.
Hop on now, we starting out. Texas land, the Panthers shout. Tigers roar and deserts drought. What's that whisper? Ain't no doubt. Next to Boot got Jacks to see. More tigers prowling, making others flee. Arkansas, a quick short spree. Golden Lions, they run free.
How long the tour bus, so let's go. Wednesday and Sunday out when you can take the tour.
We love the sip, so we raising cheers. Delta doubles, fueling fears. Braves and Tigers through the years. Echo loud and crowded spheres. Swing through Bama, hear them call. Hornets buzzing, stand up tall. Bulldogs barking in the hall. Feel the rhythm break or fall. Sunshine State, we ending last. Rattlers creeping, moving fast. Join the chorus, make it blast. Wildcats past and future, hold it fast. SWAC stories on the stage. Every chapter turning page.
What is up, everybody? Man, how y'all doing? Welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk, the show we cover the SWAC inside and out. I am your tour guide around the SWAC Seawells coming at you, and we are gonna just do a quick recap, wrap up, whatever you want to call it, of the SWAC tournament. Tournament ended last night, and we know who are going to the NCAA tournament from the men and women. We also know Texas Southern's going to the WNIT. So we're just awaiting any other destinations for some of our men's teams. I'm assuming Southern and Jackson State are going to the Black College Invitational Championship or whatever it is called. I'm assuming that's where they're going. Maybe a CIT or whatever berth for somebody else. So we're gonna find out that information on Monday. We'll find out who the SWAC's opponents are on tonight for the NCAA tournament. And this evening, whatever team Bama State draws, I'm gonna have a first look at that team. I'll have that up sometime tonight. So stay tuned. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Like I said, we're not gonna take a long time on these. We're just gonna kind of run through my thoughts on the tournament and just kind of go from there. So as usual, we'll start with the women, and we'll first start off with the all tournament team. And this was a very entertaining tournament. Before we even get into that, let me give my overall thoughts on the tournament. Upsets were the name of the game in the early portions of the women's tournament. I do think 10 teams was a great number for the women's tournament because you had 3 teams that were 6-12, and you had one team that was 7-11. So all those teams were right there. Any one of those teams could have been a 7 or 8 seed in a tournament. So having those teams have the opportunity to still have a chance to get in, I think that was very worthwhile. And you ended up with situations like Valley, who ended the season hot, and they got in. They would have probably missed out in an 18 tournament. Prairie View was able to get in and win a game. So there were 2 upsets on the opening day of the women's tournament. Bethune-Cookman lost to Prairie View 57-52, and Valley beat FAMU 68-65. And both of those games were overtime games. So that immediately let you know that we were going to have some very entertaining games. Tuesday was just that way. Wednesday was kind of what you expected. You had 2 teams coming off of victories going up against the top 2 teams, and both those teams won these games by 20 points each. Texas Southern beat Prairie View 69-49, and Southern beat Valley 63-43. Nothing surprising there. Our next surprise came on Thursday when Alcorn, who I don't even want to call them giant killers because they really should be on that level. This team is a 6 seed, but they've had some moments where they just haven't played up to par, and that's why they ended up at that spot. This is a top four team. I don't care what you say, especially this year. This is a top four team. They knocked off Texas Southern 56-53. This was their second time in 2 years knocking off the the 3 seed in the tournament. Grambling lost by 10 to Jackson State 57-47 in a game that was very tight until the end. So still, a few entertaining games there. Friday was the semifinals, and Alcorn did it again, just like last year. They knocked out the 3 seed and the 2 seed. They did it here. They knocked off Texas Southern on Friday 65-55. So that's a solid win, and that's a game they led pretty much all game, or at least for good stretches of the game. They had control of this game, and so they got the win there. Advancing to their second straight conference championship game. And Southern beat Jackson State 51-47 in a game that they really had a lock on in the third quarter before Jackson State really put some fire into their bellies and, made Southern have to sweat it out at the end. But Southern with another defensive effort, another game holding teams under 50 points in the tournament. They did that all three games. And in the final game, they beat Alcorn 64-44 in a game that was tied up at 20 after the first quarter. And Southern basically outscored Alcorn from then on. Alcorn had they had two single-digit quarters in the second and the fourth quarter. So Southern really did a good job there defensively in this whole tournament, only allowing teams to score an average of 44.6 points per game. And that if you do that, it really almost doesn't matter what you do offensively. Of course, you want to have better offensive efforts, especially moving further into the tournament. Because right now, I've seen projections of Southern drawing a first four bid, and then I've seen them having a game against USC, which y'all know USC basketball. Juju Watkins is a fool. That's not really the matchup I want to see for Southern. I really would rather see them not have to play one of those teams right out the gate. So I would love to see them play in a first four matchup to try to get a dub. They haven't won a tournament game before. So get that opportunity, and then go take on that team with a dub under your belt. But this was a really entertaining tournament, and the women's tournament is typically top heavy. Whoever comes in as the top seed usually wins it. There are some exceptions, where a 2 seed or a 3 seed wins it, but for the most part, the regular season champ typically wins it. And usually there's a bigger gap between, the top team and like the 5th or 6th seed. But this season, Southern finished 15-3. Alcorn was 10-8 at the 6th seed. So that's only 5 games between 1st and 6th place. That's not a lot of distance between those teams. So, this was a very even tournament. I really think, honestly, realistically, this was a tournament where I felt like 5 teams, or maybe even 6, depending on how you look at it, had a legitimate chance of winning the tournament. Especially if somebody, if somebody big got knocked out, that really opened the door for somebody else. But as you can see with a team like Alcorn making that run from the 6th seed and beating those 2 and 3 seeds, in solid games and not last second shots or nothing like that, just, solid dubs, that lets you know that, from 1 to 6, this is a very competitive and balanced league. And even when you get into a team like Valley, who was 9th, they beat Alcorn 2 times this season. They beat Jackson State at the end of the season. So they came in hot, and they had a chance, but they ran into a team in Southern who defensively just made things hard for them, and kind of took advantage of some of the weaknesses that they have as a team. But they still made a good showing. Prairie View, like I said, made a good showing. So it really was a very entertaining tournament. Not as chaotic as the men, because it never really is like that. But Alcorn has been really making that move these last couple of years. So when you look at the all-conference team, Alicia Fantroy from Texas Southern, Jayla Reed from Valley, she had a really good tournament shooting from outside. Destiny Brown from Alcorn, she did what she do. I don't know how injured she was. after that fall that she had against Texas Southern because she didn't necessarily look like she normally does. She made some plays that she usually does, but she also kind of looked like she was settling for a few things. But still, she's a dominant defensive player. That's why she's defensive player of the year. She's strong on the board. She blocks shots. She can drive to the basket. She can hit that little free throw line jump shot. Really great player. Um, and so, she definitely deserved that. Sanaya Reed from Southern had a strong tournament, and Anaya Gordine from Southern, who was the tournament MVP, was the leader of this Southern team. This team didn't really score a lot of points. So, you're not going to have a player who had a high average, but this was more of a team that, kind of got it done by committee. And, Gardine was really the leader of this team basically all season. Even when she didn't have games where she led the team in scoring, she still was a big factor for the team all tournament long. I mean, Southern's highest point total in the tournament was the 64 points they scored on Saturday. So not they didn't really put up a lot of points, but they played great defense. They got contribution from everybody. I really think Sanders could have been a all tournament candidate as well. She had a very good tournament for Southern, running point for them. But Southern advances, and now they're going dancing for the second time in 3 years. And I do want to say I don't think a lot of people look at Southern women's basketball as being a really good program as it has been consistently since the Sandy Pugh days. I mean, when you go back to like 2000, this team has been in the mix multiple years. They haven't really had a lot of losing seasons in conference play. They won 6 SWAC tournaments. I think they won like six or seven regular season championships. They typically always no lower than fourth. They've been competitive against the best teams in the league all that whole time, and they've been right there in the mix. And I don't think they really get the recognition that they deserve, especially with the job that Coach Funches did taking over after Coach Pugh left. That the team never really missed a beat, and that's what changing players, changing a lot of things didn't change philosophy wise, but they changed players. You get different groups every year. Some teams are a little bit more offensive minded, but their defense is always going to be there, and that's been the key for Southern. This whole run is defense, and so I really think that they did a great job in this tournament, and everybody else. It was a very competitive tournament. It was a fun tournament to watch. I will admit, because Southern men team got beat in the first in the first round. I watched more women's basketball in the tournament than I did men. Although I did watch pretty much every late game, but I think the women's tournament was very fun. The men's tournament is chaos as usual, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But I also think that when you break it down, both sides were good. I think the atmosphere was great. I think Atlanta and the Gateway Center is the best venue for this. My only gripe, and I'm gonna get to that when I get to the men's side of things, and we might as well go ahead and jump there now so I can get my only gripe out of the way. My only gripe, and again, like I always say, when I got a gripe or something, I typically understand why things are the way they are. But my only gripe was the game starting at 8:30 on Saturday night. And when you think about it, that's not bad for us in the Central Time Zone. But you asking people to come to a game at 9:30 at night, in a city where there's a ton of things to do. And so, I think they had a great crowd. I think they had a good matchup. Bama State, not that far, not super far away. Jackson got a great presence in Atlanta. And, both teams were in the championship for the first time in a while. Both teams looking for their first SWAC championship in a while. So I think the matchup was great. Both teams were hot. These were the hottest two teams left in the tournament. They both got there, playing some exciting ball. And so it was a really good matchup that, you really couldn't ask for a better championship matchup other than maybe your top team being there. But if your top team not there, then the team who swept them should definitely be there. And I think Bama State did a tremendous job with the play that they had all tournament long. And that's a testament to what Coach Madlock did with these guys. They have a system and they have a style of ball they like to play, and they play a style of ball where if they're not scared to shoot threes, and that's what they want to do. They want to let it fly, and they're not scared to let it fly. Um, and so when I talk about chaos, the men's tournament has been chaotic for a long time, and this is a tournament where when you look at it, the top seed doesn't necessarily come out on top a lot. I mean, the top seed has won the SWAC tournament 5 times since 2000, basically since the last time Bama State went to the tournament, which was in 2011. The SWAC has had the 5 seed win the tournament 5 times, and that was in 2012, 2017, it was 2012, 2015, 2017, 2019, and in 2024 with last year with Grambling. So as you can see, it hasn't been a run of number ones winning it. Number 2 seed has won it 3 times in 2013, 2014, and 2022. The 3 seed has won it twice in 18 and 21. The 4 seed has won it twice in 2011 and 2016. And then the 5 seed won it this season in 2025. And then the 8 seed won it in 2023. So you can really win the SWAC tournament from anywhere. The odds of the top team making it all the way through is not always great because the league is typically balanced. The records might not always look that way, but these teams are not always that different talent wise. I mean, every so often you have a team in the SWAC that's just head and shoulders above everybody else, but typically you don't have that. And so you have teams who match up well with teams. Lower seeded teams match up well with higher seeded teams. Lower seeded teams sweep higher seeded teams in the SWAC. So having teams who are not that big a difference talent wise makes a tournament so much more even. And knowing that you got to go through these 3 teams to get there, it makes it a little bit tougher. And so if you can find yourself in a good spot and get you a good early matchup and maybe get you some momentum under your belt, then you can kind of parlay that momentum into a tournament finals appearance. And then once you get there, anything can happen. Looking at the scores from the men's tournament, Grambling opened up the tournament with a 73-56 victory over Alabama A&M. FAMU beat Prairie View by a score of 75-66. Moving over to Wednesday, Grambling continued their run by knocking off Southern in a game that Southern led by 12 early in the second half, but Grambling never gave up. And just like they did in Baton Rouge, they came back and basically tied the game up. And in this game, they took the lead and kind of held on to it into overtime, and then through overtime, beating Southern 65-62. FAMU lost to Jackson State 91-76. On Thursday, our other quarterfinals, we had Alabama State defeating Texas Southern 84-79. So that ended the TSU tournament magic that everybody was expecting. And then Bethune-Cookman beat Alcorn by a score of 69-60. Friday in our quarterfinals, Alabama State was able to knock off Grambling in a game that they trailed for a good portion before they kind of got hot from the 3-point line. Late, Tyler Mack had 4 threes for them off the bench, scoring 60, giving the Hornets a 64-62 victory. They advanced them to the championship, and then Jackson State was able to pull away from Bethune-Cookman 71-50 in the final semifinal. And then yesterday, championship game. This was a very good game, man. It was one of those games that it wasn't pretty offensively, but both teams gave it their all on defense. Both teams really got out there, and it was a physical game. You could tell both teams knew what was on the line. Bama State was able to kind of get hot a little bit late. CJ Hines carried them through this game with 20 points, but they got production from Fulcher. Amar Knox had a couple of big plays. TJ Madlock had one of his typical games. He didn't score like he normally does, but he always is like a stat sheet stuffer kind of guy. Bass had a couple of big shots. They got plays from everybody, and that's what they've been doing all season in this run since they beat Southern in their first matchup with Southern. They kind of turned it on from there. And this is a team I call it like an interchangeable team because they're like all guys, not necessarily they all basically similar sizes. They all basically do similar things. So everybody can kind of fit in any role at any time. They run well. They defend. They're very careful with the ball. They don't turn it over almost at all. And they have a ton of guards. You have a guy in TJ Madlock who's a guard, but he rebounds his ass off. Um, he's so much more. He's so much more than a second team all conference guy. I really think that's a crime that he hasn't been a first team all conference guy. But they're such a team, and any given game, any one of those guys can go off for 25 or 30 points because of the way they shoot from outside. They're not scared of the 3-pointer. If they're missing, they're not scared to keep shooting. They all got that shooter's mentality, and you could see it in the game last night. They started off very cold, but they never stopped shooting. And even there was even time I was like, "Yo, man, just go inside," But that's what they do. They're gonna keep firing away, and it's either gonna start falling or it's not. That's what they find with that. And so I think Coach Madlock has done a great job with this program, building it up. And like I said, they don't have such explosive guys. They're not like running all over the court, flying all over the court, dunking and flying all over the place. But they play good defense. They very careful with the ball, and they shoot. They shoot a lot, and they make a decent clip when they're hot. But they made 14 threes against Grambling. Was it Grambling or was it the first? They made 14 threes against Texas Southern. So they can hit a ton of threes, which can really turn a game around, whether they're losing or winning. And for me watching them play last night, I kept saying as they got hot late down the stretch, I kept saying this looks familiar because it reminded me of the games against Southern where they just found that point. Anytime you score, they hit a three. They seemingly, always hit a three when they need one, or they get to the line and knock down free throws when they need them. But I think Jackson State played a good game. I think they did not go deep into their bench for whatever reason. I think Shannon Grant played a great game. I do think a couple minutes here and there off the court would have helped him a lot. I think, a guy like that, I don't think you need to play him 39 minutes. You give him a couple breaks here and there, and maybe even, with Mansell playing the 5 and, surrounding him with 4 guards, maybe that opened up a little bit more for your offense. And then you bring Grant back in because he was getting hammered. And, you need to give him a little bit of a break. And then maybe that opens it up for your guards. And then you bring him back in and let him dominate down the stretch. But, you can always second guess whatever. But CJ Hines ended up as the tournament MVP. Rightfully so. TJ Madlock, all conference. Shannon Grant, all conference. Deshaun Ruffin, all conference. And Roger Coffey from FAMU and Contavious Dozier, all conference guys. So I think, that was a lot. And FAMU came into this game, into this tournament without Sterling Young, who was the SWAC player of the year. So, they were kind of shorthanded, but they still kind of put up a decent showing. And so this opens up where Bama State goes. Rankings wise, they're pretty much destined for a first four. And I know a lot of people always hollering about why teams got to go to the first four, and it's simple. We don't win non-conference games. I think nobody in our conference has a net rating above like 250. So if you look at the MEAC, I think Norfolk State is like 192 and South Carolina State was like 195 or something like that. That gets you out of that play-in game. And when you look at the way this conference is, with everybody playing so many money games, and every small conference plays them, but the SWAC seems to play more than everybody else, and we don't win enough of those mid-major type of games. So when you play a non-conference schedule, you come in with 0 and whatever or 1 and whatever, it already drops your rankings. And then if you have a team who starts off the season hot in conference play, that's it's all good until they start playing more of those teams, and then everybody rankings goes down. And then if that team loses to some of those teams in conference, then everybody ranking goes down because your top team is losing to these teams with 320 rankings. So you even though these teams have talent and they have the ability to not be put there, the rankings that kind of slot you there are never going to be in your favor. So it's very simple. If our team wants to avoid that 16 seed and avoid that play-in game and try to get a 15 or at least be considered for one, we got to win games and we got to have a higher net ranking. So I would love to see Bama State not be in a play-in game, but I think they're pretty much destined to be there. If they don't get there and they get a straight 16, then I'd be very surprised. But I'm figuring that they're gonna be matching up against either American, Mount St. Mary's, or St. Francis. So I'll have a video on whoever they do match up with in the tournament dropping this evening sometime after the selection show. So with that being said, man, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC. See well signing out, and I will catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.